What we're going to do is we're going to change the shock and strut on the front of a 2010 Chevy Traverse. You have the shock and strut and your stabilizer link. I'm going to replace both of those. As you'll see when we get the tire off, I'll show you it's moving because this one is damaged. You're going to need wrenches, American and metric. I'm going to use some impact wrenches too to make life easier. You're going to want some deep sockets, American and metric. I'm going to be using impact to speed it up, a flathead screwdriver, a big sledgehammer, a jack stand. You're going to want to put grease in them, center 4-bar, and if you so choose, what you want to do is you always want to put your emergency brake on before you do any lifting. Pop the hood, lift the hood up. Now what you're going to do is you're going to remove all these clips to be able to loosen up these pieces of plastic. And what you do is it's twofold. You actually have a piece inside of a piece and you have to pop the middle piece up. Once you pop the middle piece up, then you can go underneath the bottom piece and pop the entire bottom piece up. You'll see it comes apart, and that's how it works. Okay, you have to remove this panel here, but you also have to remove the windshield wipers as well. But before I remove the windshield wipers, I always like to remove these. And you have right here, right there, here. I'm not going to remove all these front ones because I'm not completely removing this plastic piece. I don't need to. I only just need to remove this one up to be able to lift it up out of the way so I can remove this one. Alright, then you're going to have 4 along the piece you're taking off. I'll pop these off as well. Last one. Before you're able to remove this, now that you have this loose, you have to take the windshield wipers off. You'll see that there's a little bitty gap right there where this pushes in and you twist it and it pops it up and out of the way. Pop that one off as well. And you're going to want to take your ground off, and that will release this panel up. Once you break it loose, you should be able to twist right off. Now what you do is you grab this and you kind of just shimmy it. Pull the bottom around it. You'll pull this one around this to where it's released, lift it up, and then set this one back down. Alright, same goes for this, same thing. You lift it up, pull it around, set that back down. Now you have to lift it up and go over this. Comes right out. You take that off so you have access to all these bolts and nuts to be able to take the shock and strut off. They have one on each side. You got to take this plastic piece off to get access to this. Before you take the tire off the ground, you have your jack underneath and have a little bit of tension on it or compression on it. You want to come here and you want to loosen these a little bit. You want to loosen them and then jack it up. Jack stand for safety. In case it falls, it'll land on the stand. So here we're going to take these 2 bolts off for the shock and strut. You got the 3 bolts at the top, I'll show you that, and then you got your drive link here. 1 nut here and 1 in the back to take this drive link off. You got your stabilizer link right here. You got your shock and strut right here. We're going to pop these off. These will pop out. This one will pop right here. Set that out of the way. So you're going to need 8mm and you're going to need 18mm. You have the 8mm to hold the bolt in place to be able to take the nut off. See, now that you got this loose enough, you see how that's twisting too? That's why you have your 8mm, so you can lock it in place. But I'm going to go sit there and go like this. I'm going to crank it off. And now that I have it almost off, I don't take it completely off yet because I still got to do the bottom side. So I usually take 18mm underneath. About to break it loose. Now that I got it loose, you get your 8mm in there, ratchet wrench. So I'm going to make life go easier. Unscrew that one off. Finish unscrewing the top one off. And you can see how it's all corroded and old. And see how it moves so easily? You don't want it to move that easily. You got your replacement shock and strut. your replacement stabilizer link. It's stiff, does not move like you want to. We'll have a grease gun and we're gonna grease the greasers, these little inserts, but we gotta tighten them up first. All right, we got a 15/16 nut. The bolt is 21 millimeter. You can use wrenches to do it, where you break the nut loose first and then just sit there and wrench the nut off. Or you can use what I'm going to use, impact, and I'm going to just take it off. Set something underneath it to hold it up, to be able to hold in place, to hold your drum brake and everything in place, because you're going to have to tap these out. Drill tool. And you'll see that they have a spline as well. So when these go in, they lock and they don't twist. There's 3 bolts here. You're gonna have to take it off. It's a 15 millimeter. And you'll see now that it's loose. It can drop down out of this platform. Take the last bolt out. You'll see the whole thing drops down. You have officially removed it. The cone has a top, has a cone, which will help seat right up in that cone. You got your new nuts to go on, new spring, where the stabilizer link's gonna go, and then the 2 big bolts. If the rubber boot is not pushed up to the top, make sure you just give it a good push before you install it. All right, you find a spot, hold it in place. Helps if you have 2 people doing this. Just start the nuts on. Once you get these nuts on, you're good to let it go and drop down a little bit. All right, you want to bring them up into place. You want to be able to lift it up. Get your tiny hammer. Get them started. Bolts are in it with the splines. Let's lock it in place. See how it's pulling it in? Then I go back and double check it by hand just to make sure it's tight. Bottom one too. All right, now we gotta go tighten the top. Got about 5/8 with my universal joint. And I'm gonna make sure they're just good and tight. Got your new stabilizer link here. These have greasers on them. The old ones didn't, the factory ones. Just make sure these are tight because they usually don't tighten these up. What you want to do is you want to impregnate grease into the boot until you start to see it swell a little bit. You pop the greaser on and you sit there and watch it until you see the boot swell. And now we're going to install it. Stabilizer link goes in. You want to get it started. Get the nut started on it, and now we're going to come here and worry about the top. And you're going to need to push this down and then slide it into place. Cross pattern, just to get it barely tight so you can set it down and tighten it all the way. Now we tighten them all the way. Slide it in. Line it back up. Get this corner in here. Once you have this corner in place, lift this up. Slide it to where you see the ground. Spin this back around the ground and pop it back in place. Lift this side up. Slide this back into place. Your windshield wiper stuff here, you got your ground, and you got your big plugs and your little ones, and just to make sure that all of them are lifted up before you use them. You want them all to be lifted up like that before you snap them in. Snap them in. 2, 3, 4. Those are all snapped in. All right, now we're gonna snap the big ones in. Ground on. We'll tighten that up when we tighten those nuts up. What you do is I place it back where originally set and find it and hit it down on that spline. back to exactly where it was. Same thing here. Put it back in its place. All right, got your 5/8. Come here and tighten it until that's tight. Tighten this. Got your caps. They go right over that nut and they just snap into place. It's right over it. Now you have the cover back on, you have officially completed a shock and strut and stabilizer link replacement.